So I've been thinking a lot about AI lately, and specifically about whether we should be worried about our over-reliance on it. Because if I'm being completely honest with myself, I use AI for absolutely everything now. Every email that comes in gets pasted into Claude for analysis, and every project brief gets discussed with it. Every piece of writing gets shaped by it, and when Claude goes down, my entire work life grinds to a halt. So should I be worried about this dependency? Should you? After spending the last few weeks working through this question, I've landed somewhere that I thought might be useful to share with you, because I think the conversation about AI is happening right now in organizations everywhere, and the dividing line between those who embrace it and those who resist it matters more than most people might realize. When I first noticed how reliant I'd become on AI, my immediate reaction was obviously concern. I started thinking about all the things that could go wrong. What if Claude disappeared tomorrow? What if I was outsourcing too much of my thinking? What if I was going to lose my critical skills? But then I started to look at all the other dependencies I had in my working life. I mean, after all, if the internet goes down, work stops. If the power goes down, my life stops. And if the AWS servers go down, which they seem to do every other week at the moment, half the tools I rely on become useless. If Figma stops working, then design work halts. We've built our entire professional lives on top of dependencies we barely think about anymore. And I think AI is just one more in that stack. The question is not whether or not we should be dependent on it, because that ship has already sailed for most of us. The most interesting concern for me is whether AI is stopping me thinking. I've heard this worry from a lot of people, and there was even an MIT study on it. And I understand where people are coming from, because when you watch someone paste a problem into ChatGPT and blindly implement whatever comes back, it does look like they're outsourcing their brain. But I think this misunderstands what most of us are actually doing with AI. You see, there are three different levels of thinking that happen in any given day. There's the strategic thinking about project direction, what problems we're solving, what approaches make sense. Then there's the analytical thinking about whether an idea is sound, what evidence supports a conclusion, whether a design solves an actual problem. And then there's what I call mundane thinking, which is about how to word an email, how to structure a document, how to format a proposal. And what I've found is that AI handles that bottom layer, that mundane thinking, beautifully. When a client sends me a long rambling email with 5 different questions buried in 3 paragraphs of context, I no longer spend mental energy untangling it. I just paste it into Claude and say, summarize the key questions here. Then I think about the answers. I tell Claude what I think about each point. Sometimes I ask for its perspective on one or two when I'm genuinely uncertain, not because I can't think it through myself, but because having a sounding board helps me think better. After all, when I worked at an agency, I had colleagues for this. I would turn to Marcus or Chris and say, what do you think about this? But I don't have that anymore, and so AI fulfills that role. It does not replace my thinking. It helps me think more clearly by taking away the low-level cognitive load and giving me space to bounce ideas around. Where this gets interesting is in what it delivers for clients. I worked on a project recently where a client wanted me to improve the conversion rate of his landing pages. They had a budget that in the past would have stretched to maybe 3 or 4 sample landing pages and a conversation about why I built them that way. That would have given them something useful, but fairly limited. They would have had some examples to work from, but not much guidance on how to replicate the process themselves. But with AI, I was able to create an entire playbook, detailed guidelines for every component, design principles explained with examples, a system that they could use again and again. I probably delivered 4 times more value in about a third of the time that it would take me before. The strategic thinking was all mine. That understanding of what makes landing pages convert came from more than 30 years of me doing this kind of work. But the documentation, the articulation, the packaging of that knowledge into something comprehensive and usable came from working with AI. Most of my clients will not end up doing all of this work themselves, even with AI's help. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't have the pattern recognition that comes from seeing hundreds of projects. They can't evaluate whether the output they're getting is actually good or just sounds convincing, and they haven't the time anyway to review and iterate upon the output to improve things. That's what they're paying me for. AI isn't replacing that expertise, it's amplifying what I can do with it. What bothers me the most about the anti-AI sentiment that I'm seeing is that it's missing the point. People post about AI slop and declare they are AI free as if it's some kind of badge of honor. The conversation shouldn't be about whether we use AI, because in my opinion, that question has already been answered by the market. The conversation should now be how we use it well, how to maintain the strategic thinking while still leveraging the tool, how to keep the human insights while letting the machine handle the grunt work, how to deliver more value in less without sacrificing quality. Because in my experience, the people who need UX professionals are not suddenly going to do it themselves just because AI exists. They don't have the time for that. They still don't know what questions to ask, and they still can't evaluate the quality. What changes is that the UX professionals who embrace AI can deliver significantly more value than those who resist it. So personally, I'm not threatened by AI. I feel empowered by it. It lets me hold far more complexity in my head than I could do before. It lets me process larger amounts of information. It lets me deliver more refined, more thoughtful, and more valuable work. All the things AI does badly, high-level strategic thinking, judging quality, understanding human needs, driving projects forward, are exactly the things that clients still need me for. So I'm leaning into my dependency on AI deliberately because it allows me to deliver more value in less time. My clients get better work, delivered faster, for the same investment. And after all, that's why I'm in business. AI has become another tool in my arsenal, like Figma or analytics platforms or any of the other things I rely on to do my job well.